started his fire service career in 1991 as a volunteer in his home of Utahville, South Carolina. He started as a career firefighter in Myrtle Beach in 1993 before joining the Charleston Fire Department in 1995. Mark last served as the deputy chief before retiring from Charleston in 2017. Mark also owned a mechanical construction business for more than 20 years, which he sold in 2018 to become chief of Lexington County Fire Service. Mark and Tina live in Lexington with their 3 children, all of whom attend Lexington High School. So would you please join me in welcoming Mark Davis.
Don't clap yet. If I do well, thank you. If I do poorly, Joe Merger hired me. So feel free to reach out to him. And I'm not going to stand. If I stand behind this podium, I'm going to start asking Daryl Hudson for money because it's like being a budget time. So I'm going to stand over here. So obviously I'm here because it's Fire Prevention Month. So a little bit of information about Fire Prevention Month and how it got started. Back in about 1924, the federal government set up a commission to look at fire deaths in our country. One of the things they found, we did not have a robust prevention program, so they actually established a Fire Prevention Day. And it's always in October, and it's always this time of year, to coincide with the Great Chicago Fire. And everybody's heard the story of Miss O'Leary's cow burned down Chicago. Well, I hate to tell you, that cow was framed. The cow had nothing to do with it. It actually started at a building right down from the stall. So that eventually morphed into a week. And Fire Prevention Week is the longest campaign for public health in the history of the United States that was founded by the government. So since the early 20s, the government's looked at ways to support fire prevention. So eventually that became a month. And the reason it became a month is eventually law enforcement got a week. And because fire service is 4 times as awesome as the police department, we got a month. I know the sheriff knew there was going to be a joke about the police department. With that being said, I would like to just discuss what your fire department does and an understanding of who we are and the services that we provide across the whole county of Lexington. Now, if you'll look outside in the back of the room, we have firefighters here. We have effectively blocked off every exit of this parking lot. It's going to cost you $5 to leave before you go. But we have some different examples of our apparatus outside. Stop, take a look at what your tax dollars pay for. And just like everybody else in this room, we've been affected by the economy as well. A fire engine this year has gone up $100,000. We have 93 pieces of rolling stock, and it costs $800,000 a year just for maintenance and fuel for the Lexington County Fire Service to go. That's just to go. So diesel fuel's up, that's costing us more money. Luckily, we have a county council, and we have a community that supports us. So I will say that. Your Lexington County Fire Service is the 4th largest fire department in this state. And we're one of the most active. Who in here realize that we were that big? So only bigger than us is Columbia, the city of Charleston, and Horry County. Horry County Fire Service is both fire and EMS combined. So a little bit about us. Next slide. We cover 702 square miles. So just an idea, that is twice the size of the city of New York, all 5 of its boroughs. So we are the largest district that responds from one agency in the state of South Carolina. We have 25 fire stations. We operate 365 days a year, including holidays. Now, one of the unique things for me, because this is a county-based system, I'm just not the fire chief of Lexington. So in Charleston, I reported to 1 mayor and 1 council. Here we have a very robust system across the county. And for every town you see there, we are effectively their fire department, and I'm their fire chief. Luckily, we all have the same needs and the same goals. And it really is all communication based. Not only do we respond to every one of these towns on a daily basis, but usually one of your fire trucks is responding into the city of Columbia via automatic aid, Irmo, West Columbia, Casey, and even to our neighboring counties, we provide them support on a daily basis. We are the largest player on this side of the river. We have the most manpower, people power on duty, and we have the most robust set of skills. So you can actually find Lexington County firefighters at any large-scale event across the state, from a hurricane to a major fire in the upstate. Resources from Lexington County will go to support them. So, next slide. Everybody knows what we do, and I'd like to tell people, whatever anyone else can't do in emergency services is what the fire department's tasked with doing. All right? So any of those calls that are just completely out of the ordinary, it's not just a simple law enforcement call or an EMS call. The fire department's going to be there. We carry that robust set of skills, and we have the ability to adapt. So if you look, these are the basic things we do. Emergency medical first responder. I was given a task or a challenge, and I'm proud to say that in the last 2 years, even through COVID, we have gone from having 6 fully trained emergency medical technicians on fire trucks to 75, and we'll be at 100 by the end of the year. And that was done at no cost to the taxpayer, because our county council administration partnered with the Department of Labor for free training to provide up to $2,200 for people to go to EMT school. So that's been a benefit to not only our firefighters, but to the citizens of this county. It was basically tax-free. We maintain 25 workstations plus our training facility. We do have a world-class training facility that the county has endeavored to fully support, and it is still growing. We are constantly tasked out, not only local industry who has to come over and train our facility, but the state of South Carolina will actually bring people from their fire academy over when they have overflow, which is truly a representation of what it is we have in this county and how we're looked at from across the state. So you can go ahead to the next slide, please. So I actually added this. This is our basic presentation, but because most of the people in here are business owners, your interaction with the fire department is hopefully from a fire prevention standpoint and not us coming because of a call. And we have a very robust division, our fire prevention division, made up of 5 fire marshals who do come out. We do everything, which is unique for most places, but we're very pro-business. So we do our own plan review in-house, so we can get those turned around quicker. You have a choice between using the services of Lexington County Fire, or you can send it to the state fire marshal's office. Which one do you think you'll get back quicker? Right. So we do all our own plan review. We will work alongside the state on some large or specialty projects. We also do code enforcement. Number 1 complaint that I receive in Lexington County is outdoor burning. All right, so I will tell you, our fire marshals, they do have the ability to go out and cite people, but our responsibility is to educate. And that's what we want to do. We want to educate you. So they'll also do inspections. Number 1 inspection type we get, that's a complaint, is an overstocked business. And we will come and we will ask you to move your product, to put it in place. And there's one particular type of store in our county that we're constantly at. And if you follow social media, you will see that we have closed several while they got their shop in order, so to speak. Remember, that's not only for the civilians, but when my firefighters are coming into that building and there's only smoke, and you're trying to get through all of that debris and that clutter, is hazardous for us as well. So we do not like to close a business. We will do everything we can to educate, but we do enforce the codes of this county and this state. So you can go ahead to the next slide. Our fire marshals, one thing I'll say, I pride the fact that they are very easy to reach, and if you have a problem, they will come out and work alongside you. I know many people in this room, especially with large-scale building projects, we try to assign the same fire marshal to walk all the way through that project. And as always, my information is on the county website. You can reach out directly to me if you have any problems. And this is our slide that has a misspelling on it that I didn't catch till about 2 o'clock this morning, but an idea of what we do. So if you'll look, EMS calls, we run about 10,700 EMS calls last year. So we run in support of Lexington County EMS, who is the main provider here. That 10,000 calls is truly the worst of the worst medical calls. This is people who are not breathing, they are having trouble breathing, choking, and a large portion of that is also drug overdoses. I will say this piece. This is something that we're number 1 in, that I'm sorry we are, but Lexington County Fire Service gave out more Narcan last year under the state program than any other fire department in the state. But remember, we're covering 700 square miles. So you'll run through our calls. The last one I want to talk about is the fires, 1,141 structure fires. All right, that is some type of fire. Out of that, about 450 are truly houses that are burning. That's almost a structure fire a day. We have a lot of fire in Lexington County. I would put those numbers up against the entire county of Charleston. Probably didn't have 700 working structure fires last year. So we have a lot of fires. So in our history, one of the things that I'm proudest of under my tenure here has actually been the collaboration that we've had with the other organizations. And most people don't realize this, but Lexington County Sheriff's Department and Fire Service partnered together and apprehended one of the, if not the most prolific serial arsonist in the state of South Carolina. It was actually a female who had been arrested before, but between the collaboration of the Fire Service, Sheriff's Department, and SLED and ATF, she is actually will not be released from prison forever. But it was more than 40 actual fires that were put together. But if we didn't have that interagency collaboration in this county, of all the places I've worked, it is the best I've ever seen. Then that case would not have come to as quickly as a resolution as it did. So. All right. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Time for questions? Anything? All right. You can have a fire pit in your yard, and you can also burn if you have 75 feet away from a property line or a structure. Everybody hear that? If you have 75 feet away from a structure, 75 feet from the property line, you can burn general yard debris. You cannot tear off your deck and burn it in the backyard. And I actually have a fire marshal in the back who would be more than happy to answer any questions. If it's dimensional lumber, you cannot burn it. If it's branches that have fallen out of your yard and you have those clearances for your property, then you can actually do it. Thank you. Well, I guess the presentation is over. Yes, sir.
Say a little more, if you would, about the coordination between EMS and fire. So if I call 911 and say I've got an emergency, whose role and how is that determined?
All right, so from the moment you dial 911 and the operator answers, they're going to ask you police, fire, or EMS. And once you get to your designated silo, so to speak, they're going to start asking you questions called Pro QA. So if you have a severe, which we consider, our calls are listed as Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. So Alpha would be, I have a headache. And Echo would be, and this is a serious call, there is a person on fire. If it is a high-level Charlie, such as a drug overdose, a Delta or an Echo, cardiac arrest, you're getting the closest fire truck. And sometimes you're going to get multiple fire trucks. So one of the other slides shows, last year we ran about 18,600 calls, as I recall, and that is true incident numbers. A structure fire requires 7 units. So we're making about 36,000 movements a year. So for a cardiac arrest, you're going to get the 2 closest fire trucks because we have basic life-saving equipment. So our goal is to get there and stabilize the scene. And it could be a West Columbia fire truck and a Lexington County fire truck. Because the one difference between my path and a private business owner is nobody is brand specific when they call 911. They just want the closest unit. So we work very well with our other fire departments. We respond seamlessly. And in fact, we have a grand rule book we call the playbook. It doesn't matter where the fire is, and it doesn't matter if it's 4 different fire departments that come, they all assume a specific job based on their arrival. So, next slide, I'm scared to ask, okay, you work. So on an average day, it's about 52.6 calls. I've already gone through the majority of this. And it's kind of a misnomer. Remember, one call could be 7, 8 different fire department units. So a lot of times when you see these trucks who are driving non-emergent, they may be moving to another part of the county just to provide coverage. Or they could be going to a lift assist call where someone calls and says, I just, I can't get my mom up. She's fine, but I just can't get my mom up. And what we don't like to do, and there's not a piece for it on the pie chart, we prefer not to go to cat and tree calls. I know that is kind of the thing. Everybody expects us to get a cat out of the tree. But if you've ever seen a 200-pound fireman on the tip of a 35-foot ladder with a 10-pound cat beating his butt, it's scary for me. So we prefer not to go on those calls, but we do answer that bucket of, I just don't know who to send. The fire department's going to come and take care of it, and usually we do. So I think that was pretty much it. Close to it. There's one other thing I wanted to discuss. Next slide. Yeah. We can go through this. I'll hit all that. You can go ahead. I feel like I'm running long. So again, what are our challenges? We're just like everyone else. Our budgets. I've never seen and I've been doing this for close to 30 years. You get a price, and in 3 months, there's a 10-15% difference. It truly is crazy. A typical fire truck was taking 8 months to deliver, and now they're at 24. So, and one of the greatest challenges that we've had is replacing our fleet. You've got close to 100 pieces of rolling stock, and now it takes 2 years to get one. You've got to really preload. This year's budget has been quite the anomaly for me because we have invested county funds, we have federal funds allocated for equipment. We have development and block grants that are out there. And if you see, there's a white truck outside that window. It's our special response truck. And that truck has loaded every piece of equipment that we might need for a rescue that we can't carry on our conventional fire trucks. And through a partnership with the state of South Carolina and our local delegation, and most effectively Paula Wall Calhoun, we did receive pass-through money to help with purchasing a truck to replace that. So you have a good bit of the new Lexington County with the red and the gray trucks and some of the older equipment that is getting phased out. So we've had tremendous success in planning that forward. We came up with a pretty dramatic apparatus replacement plan when Joe Murgo was here that was endorsed by council, and we've been able to maintain that even with the cost increases that were coming. So this is the last thing I wanted to talk about, and it's because it's really in Lexington proper. If you've been down North Lake Drive in the last day or so, there's firemen tearing a house apart, and that's what we do. Firemen are good at tearing up anything. I can assure you in that. This is a house at 1447 North Lake Drive, who my predecessor and the county administration and council, they really planned ahead on purchasing land for future fire stations. So this house is now in the process of being used for fire department drills. We're actually doing a firefighter down drill, and it will be coming to the ground in November, because that's your next fire station for Lexington County. So the funds are available, so we know we have growth in the town of Lexington. So that's going to be the next one. So that's what's going on at that house. So that being said, is there any other questions that I may be able to answer? Sir.
Got another one. Why do some municipalities like Batesburg, Leesville, and others, West Columbia, maintain their own fire departments, and places like Lexington have the county? Zero.
Well, so this would be my previous history. So most towns do have their own fire department, and really, in South Carolina, the town is the domain and the county provides ancillary services. So a countywide fire department is kind of a unique design. But when the volunteer system was so large and the county started taking over those fire stations to manage the manpower and the finances, it naturally morphed into a countywide fire department. And we're lucky. And they can say we're a countywide fire department, but we're really just a fire department for 11 different towns. So it's a unique system, but it has worked quite well, especially with the growth that has been seen in Lexington County. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think the town saves money.
What is your typical life cycle on a fire truck? I know you talked about it, it's gone up 100,000, but you replace it in 20 years or 10 years?
So we're very fortunate in Lexington County because we have our own fleet facility. So we're able to extend that The federal government, and I will say, somebody may argue with me in this room, but emergency service has got to be the most regulated entity that the government looks at. There's usually a 10-year drop dead date on most things. Our bunker gear, even if it's never been used, it has to be thrown away. NFPA, the National Fire Protection Agency, would tell you 13 years on a fire truck, 10 frontline and 3 reserve is standard. But we are able to stretch that a good bit longer. So we're averaging probably right now about 14 years because we've taken a good bit of trucks in. That's going to drop. We have a lot of apparatus on order because we were able to front load. We saw the cost increases coming and we had the capacity to do it. So we're going the right way, I guess is the way to say it.
Chief, you talked about the need to protect our fire service people on road scenes, accident scenes, and why that's important and where we stand as a state right now on taking care of our people.
Yeah, so my last blurb is in Lexington County Fire Services history, we've lost 2 employees in the line of duty death. One was in an actual structure fire in a house where the garage door came down and trapped him. And he lived for about a month and succumbed to his injuries at the Augusta Burn Center. And October the 4th of this month marked 3 years since we had a line of duty death. On a roadway, fire truck clearly blocking the road, and a commercial driver came through. Probably one of the worst days of our lives and dealing with that. The truck came through and struck Engineer Paul Quattlebaum, and he succumbed at the hospital maybe 45 minutes after the event. And what we have found in all of that is that there is not a robust means of protecting our responders on the highway. Up until recently, even with police officers, number one way a police officer died was to be struck on the side of the road. And we have been involved heavily with the state in trying to increase that legislation and make stiffer penalties. North Carolina, Maryland, other states across the board have done that. But our move over laws are very weak, and at the end of the day, there's not enough state troopers to enforce it. Well, you have to have someone there to do it. So it's going to be a part of education. It's bringing together the tow truck drivers, the police officers, everybody who works on the highways, and trying to get a better pathway forward. And there is the momentum there at the state and the state house to do it. It's getting all those things put in place and how do we enforce it. So when you're stuck on I-20 or I-26 and you see that big fire truck that's blocking all those lanes and you're thinking to yourself, why are these firemen out here doing this? That's why. Because after that, I had a fire truck hit on I-26, a ladder truck that almost killed the person who hit it, not 4 months after Paul was killed. We had Irmo, same thing. So have a little patience with us. It doesn't matter if the lights are blue or red or orange. Get over, pull to the right if you can. Everybody pulls to the left to get into the median. But when you see those lights, please pull over. Because there's a lot of things that I can legislate. I can safety engineer a lot of things. But I can never predict what the people in those cars are going to do as they're coming down the highway when my people are out there. So. Yes, ma'am.
I would submit that the general public doesn't know what the movable law is, and maybe whether there needs to be more education on TV, radio, whatever is available, but the only reason that I was even aware of the movable law was because I had a friend who owned a towing company, and they promoted it a lot. But I know you can't control out-of-state drivers, but I don't think in-state drivers really understand or even how they do.
I don't disagree with that. Education is going to be paramount to it. It's exactly what I said. Even if we pass stiffer penalties, the ability to enforce it is still in the hands of a police officer who are not necessarily at every scene. So it is going to come down to a huge education piece. What we do know is we need to educate, but we also need to put together a stricter package. And we need to build a coalition that brings everybody together between DOT, record services, police, fire, and EMS. Okay.
You probably covered it, I don't hear all that well, sir, but how do you work with the people driving the ambulances, the AWAT and
EMTs.
more like medical call?
We work very well with them, so we actually share our standing orders. Their office is straight across the street from me. The chief of EMS and I work together daily, and we will drive an ambulance, and we will get in the back because we have EMTs. We will get in the back of the medic unit and actually work a patient to the hospital.
Whatever.
Go ahead, one more, quick.
Whatever you could do to, that, I'm from another state originally, and, you know, I always pull over to the right. So do that, although we do have a friend of ours in Colorado who, the young lady was distracted, he was walking his dog across the street, and she hit him because she was eating a bagel, and she was FaceTiming her boyfriend. And he was dead on arrival. So whatever we can do to not do that, I mean, don't they teach that in driver's ed or whatever, that you just move over to the side? That's what I learned it.
I've asked myself that same question sometimes, but I do have 3 teenagers at home, so I can understand.
I'd like to ask, if you're a member of the fire department, would you please stand so we can acknowledge you, please? Would everybody please give them a round of applause?